black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Mission Apollo had no woman. While watching as a kid, Mae had a very strong opinion. It was that woman should be up in space too. Mae was motivated to make that true. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Mae went to college at age 16. She was a science-loving queen. After that, she went to medical school. She wrote in Russian, Japanese, and Swahili. That is cool. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Fast forward 8 years later, Mae saw that Sally Ride made her quest major. When she was the first American woman in space, Mae definitely knew she could win her race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Mae decided to apply for NASA, but when Challenger exploded, the impact was massive. But then she applied again. She got in. She was one of the 15 out of 2,000. That's intense. Then after 2 years of training, she received her first mission. That's amazing. 3 years later, Mae went to space. Finally, she had won her race. Exact date, you ask? September 12th, 1992. She came back 8 days later on September 20th, 1992. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. After serving as an astronaut for 6 years straight, she thought that her career was great, but now it was time to let go. After she did, she made a company. She was a pro. The Jemison Group is what she called it, yo. Encouraging science, tech, and social change. Let's go! Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Who was the first black woman in space? Mae Jemison was the one to win the race. Reach for the stars, maybe next is Mars.